Join me and Stevie this episode to talk about Neurodivergent Educators Australia. Yes, children who are neurodivergent sometimes turn into teachers who are neurodivergent. And let me tell you, those teachers have some special powers. Tune in.
Hi, I'm Selena Woodward and I'm an English and drama teacher, university lecturer and with edufolios.org, a big-time reflective practitioner. So how can reflective practice help you grow your teaching skills, fall in love with your profession all over again, and help you nail accreditation and teacher registration with less stress and less work? Well, this is the Reflective Teacher Podcast.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Reflective Teacher Podcast. As always, I am your host, Selena Woodward, and we are continuing our series of podcasts on the amazing topic of neurodiversity. Remembering that this week is Neurodiversity Celebration Week. And the goal of this week, it's a worldwide initiative, is to challenge stereotypes, misconceptions, and all of those kind of labels and ideals that we see on the telly about neurological difference. We're aiming to change how we see neurodivergent individuals, to get a better understanding of our culture, our identity, how we can support neurodivergent individuals at school, in our community, in our universities. It's just a small challenge, but it's an important one. And I am very excited today to be joined by Stevie, who is, this is her bio, a 30-something high school teacher in Ghana, South Australia. She's in her 16th year of teaching and only found out she was ADHD 1 year ago. Her specialities are English, history, and EALD, as well as humanities. She loves that too. And she is also writing resources at the moment and running an amazing Facebook group for neurodivergent educators. In fact, that is how I found Stevie, by joining her amazing Neurodivergent Educators Australia Facebook group. It's an amazing thing. I know that she started it pretty much immediately after finding out that she was ADHD. And I know that that group has become a beautiful solstice for so many educators who are neurodiverse, wherever they are on their journey, whether they've got the diagnosis or a little bit suspicious yet. So welcome to the podcast, Stevie. It's so exciting to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, you're welcome. Now, I would love you to tell us the story of that group. Tell us, why did you create that group? What's going on in there? And of course, everyone, if you resonate with this, the link for the group is over on our show notes at edufolios.org/podcast. But Stevie, tell us about the Neurodivergent Educators Australia group.
Okay, so I have been dealing with issues with my brain and my mental health for almost as long as I've been a teacher, and a little bit more as a kid. And so when I found a possible diagnosis for myself only like 2 years ago, after being suggested by a friend, but also connecting with people on social media platforms like TikTok, I realized, this is what's happening for me. I'm 99% sure this is it. And sure enough, the diagnosis was correct. So I guess seeing other groups on Facebook who kind of cater to similar stuff, there is an international group for teachers with ADHD. However, it's very US-centric, and I knew that teachers in Australia would really, really benefit from something like that. So yeah, it was probably maybe 3 weeks after I was diagnosed last year in February at age 36. And I didn't really expect it to explode the way that it did, but just a few little posts on a few different teacher pages, and we had more than 200 members within the first 48 hours, which just blew my mind. I didn't expect it to do what I thought it did. If I could connect with 2 other people in a similar boat to me, that would have been great. But now we're up over 1,100, which is really cool.
Congratulations. It's so good in there, guys.
Thank
It's really,
you.
really good. And I know I can tell you, if you are a new neurodivergent person or an educator, you get in there, you will understand immediately why there are so many people in there. And it's a really active community too. Congratulations. And of course, it's very 7.4 of you. Lots of networking, sharing knowledge, and lots of really interesting perspectives. Now, a lot of teachers listening to this will be looking for information about neurodivergent students and how they can support neurodivergent students. This kind of has a slightly different lens. We're looking at neurodivergent educators right now. Yes, amazing. You heard it here first. Neurodivergent children turn into neurodivergent adults. And I laugh because for some reason, so many people do not join those dots. You know, like we give them, yes, hopefully they're getting the support at school, but then they leave school, they go to uni. This is what this celebration week is all about. They go to the workplace. And I have to tell you that a lot of the teachers I meet, when I ask them, hey, why are you a teacher? There's often a story about wanting to do a better job, wanting to be that teacher who understood. And we neurodivergent educators tend to find each other. So I often wonder if that's a part of this understanding. And obviously when we were talking to Kate Donahue this week about lenses and neurotypical brains, seeing neurodivergent brains and the culture around that, there's another conversation here to be had through the lens of professional development, professional policy, and how schools operate. So I know that this group has been a game changer. You've been doing more than just the Facebook group, though, haven't you? You've been organising some catch-ups.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about the catch-ups.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like many of us who kind of stick to the regular school year, I mean, the first few weeks are pretty intense. And I knew that while I do a bit of social stuff at school with the rest of my colleagues, I knew that it would be really helpful for us to have a little bit of a online catch-up as neurodivergent educators with people that had at least some understanding of what we're going through. And yeah, I guess I wasn't expecting it to kind of go the way it did again, because I organised it last minute. But in our first catch up, there were 10 of us all together, and we ended up talking for a few hours. And yeah, it was really incredible. And I got to meet people from all over the place as well. So, and I mean, yes, we're all neurodivergent, but we're all very different. It's a diverse community. But the fact that we were able to kind of share quite openly, and some people chose not to, they just wanted to listen and be comfortable, not be on screen. That was really cool as well, that we were able to be as inclusive as we could be. So yeah, that's hopefully going to become quite a regular thing as well.
And you were telling me earlier that one of the really powerful things about that was that people finally had a space where it was safe to say, hey, this is happening. Is that my neurodiversity, or is that me? Or, you know, like, I know that if we think back to what we talked about in Kate's podcast around the lenses, neurodiverse brains work differently. And so there can often be a lot of shaming going on in your own head, or even from other people outside going, why can't you just sit still in this meeting? Why can't, you know, and so I imagine that when all of you are together, and it's a safe place to go, can I just check, does anyone else experience X, and what have you done about that? Is that right? Is that the kind of thing that was coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a particular member who wanted to ask about accommodations, for example, and that was because they were actually having a little bit of trouble getting those in their workplace. But also some more, I guess, general ones. We do even have a lot of pre-service teachers in our group as well, so them kind of wondering how their neurodivergence will work in a professional space. And And I mean, it's advice around how to communicate with people in a way that works for everyone. It's about advocating for yourself and getting your voice heard. It's about advocating for others and getting their voices heard. And it can be quite specific things. Another person was on there talking about the literacy program at their school, and that they didn't really like the way it was being, I guess, managed by leadership, and wondering what they could do to kind of make it work for them. Everything from, like asking for time off or going part-time, to how to kind of, work with a whole bunch of people in a very, like, it might be a typical school environment or something a bit different. But most of us, if not all of us, have had difficulties in our work environments, and it was really great to, even just to vent and let it out, and help people understand what it's like.
Yeah, to be seen and to be heard and to feel safe to have those conversations. And then again, if you are in a leadership team listening to this, I want you to lean into this phrasing. I'm going to ask you a question, principals. I'm going to ask you a question, heads of learning and teaching and teacher well-being. Do you know who on your cohort is neurodiverse? And by your cohort, I mean your staff. Is it okay for your staff to be themselves, to say, I have ADHD, I'm dyslexic, I'm autistic, whatever, dyspraxic? Or is there a culture at your site that or a fear, it might not even be a culture, you might not even have thought about this, and you're making assumptions. We all do, right? We all make assumptions, but some of us have had so many experiences that we just feel frightened to tell you, right? We don't know what you're going to do. So positive permission
scary.
Is really important. Yeah. Do you want to share an experience about that, Stevie?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, on the other side of things, we did have a teacher in our group who'd been working for 17 years and then got a autism diagnosis, and happened to tick that on their job application, and then the department stopped her pay and basically said she needed to be assessed in order to get back on the payroll. And I guess she was trying to do the right thing and say, this is what's going on with me, that might be helpful in my application. And we managed as a group to get that happening again. We wrote to a whole bunch of different people in charge, and eventually that situation was resolved. But somebody doesn't lose their ability to teach after 17 years just because they've suddenly got a diagnosis that explains their brain. So that was pretty full on. On the other side of things, though, I've been at my current school for 10 years. This is my 11th now. And my leadership team have seen me go through hell and back with mental health related stuff. And they've been, for 99% of it, been incredibly supportive. And it's kind of the sort of team that, so when I got my diagnosis, and before I got my diagnosis, I went to see my principal and say, this is what I think is going on with me. I have an appointment then. And when I got it, I tried to not run to my principal and tell her what was going on, because it was I finally had an explanation. And that meant that they had an explanation too, because they've seen me go through all of this hell. And that was incredibly affirming and really great. And that's also meant that because I overshare like nobody's business, I share stuff to my students, I share stuff to random strangers and also my colleagues. So a lot of people caught up pretty quickly to find out that not only I was running the group, but also that I have ADHD. And so I've been approached by many staff members, all individually, all like, I saw this, what do I do? Like, where do I go? Like, what are my next steps? Who can I talk to here? All of that sort of thing. But it's kind of got to the point now that even my another member of leadership is actually referring other people to me to get some advice on things. And and then she contacted me and was like, oh, I hope it's okay. I referred this person to you because I knew you'd be able to help them out. And I'm like, of course it's okay. That's amazing. I'm so, I've got goosebumps right now from, thinking about that.
Me too.
That's incredible. And if I can just, make someone feel like they're less alone, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that gives me all the dopamine.
Yeah, okay, the dopamine, absolutely, right? So that's just so affirming for neurodivergence. It's accepting, it's a great culture. Congratulations, that leadership team. It's amazing, and it sounds like it's a movement. And there is a shift happening, which is, I was talking to Stevie about this just off camera, and I don't remember us having these conversations about grown-ups before, but there is a shift happening, there is a movement. Part of that is Celebration Week for neurodiversity. Part of that is the conversations that are going on. Even with the kids, in South Australia, we've got an autism specialist now in every primary school. And most of us would say, well, that should be happening. But we're the only state that's done that so far as I know. So there is an awareness and a rising of that. But the idea that, your senior management are referring people to you, utilizing your experiences, and that I hope you're okay with that. I suppose we should check you're okay with that. You seem okay. You're getting your goosebumps and you're excited to do that.
Yeah, no, that's they know me, so yeah.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Yeah, and obviously that when you look at that through the lens of the standards, we're actually using collegial advice and we're using standard 6, all of the PD and professional development and learning, and connecting that with well-being. What kind of accommodations do you think you've needed to have? You've got the diagnosis, you've learned, you've connected. What has that meant for you and your understanding of your workplace? What kind of accommodations have you been able to get for that, or have needed for that?
It's been interesting because I guess once I started medication, and I've had years and years and years and years of therapy. And now my brain actually lets me apply all of that, which is super helpful. So, me from 2 years ago is very different to me now. And with a more organized brain that actually has some executive function occurring, I guess I've come across different problems to what I did before I was diagnosed. And it's literally just been a case of trial and error. So a problem will come up and I'll have to kind of work to get accommodations for that problem. So, and there's some really simple things. So yeah, the end of 2021, they were doing the allocations for classrooms, and we had year 7s coming into high school sites. So more teachers, more students, less classrooms, and I'm part-time. And they timetabled me into 4 different classrooms. And I proceeded to have probably the biggest meltdown at work that I've had in many, many years. And it was because I'd been in one classroom for the last, 8 or 9 years? Yeah. And I'm a disorganized person. I live in an organized mess, and that's just how I am, and I lose things all the time. And if I have 4 classrooms to lose things in, it's just not happening. I would not cope at all. So I went to the powers that be, and they worked it out. And I was in one classroom, and that's just what happened. And now that's So a person who runs one of the faculties I work in, beginning of this year, was like, hey, so you have to move classrooms, this one to this one, but I've got you in there for all of your classes. I hope that's okay. Sorry to inconvenience you with the move. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you for advocating for me. Thank you for taking that action. And that was just automatic. I didn't even have to ask for that.
Because they understand, you understand, and they understand why you need that accommodation, right? And that's exactly. Because you have the diagnosis, you understand how your brain functions, the medication has taken the edge off the I know when I'm not a medical, but I know that the stories I hear is it just clears your head a little bit, lets you hear the noise. Is that your experience? And then you can get a bit more organized, but you're not working through a neurotypical lens, you're working through a neurodivergent lens. That's been acknowledged, that's been supported. Amazing. Really cool. Really
so that's an example of quite a simple one. Another is that I have asked for 2 classes of the same subject, same year level, so I've got half of the planning for those 2 classes. Still a fair bit of work, but less in the planning lens, so it's a bit more manageable. And sometimes it's just the little stuff, like I've got a standing desk in my classroom, and I organised to get that. I bought that on Facebook Marketplace, but just simple things like that. Even the maintenance guys know, not necessarily, they don't necessarily know my diagnosis or anything, but they accommodate me for a lot of things because, it's about, I guess, making those relationships and eventually, knowing who is safe to tell, who's safe to ask. No matter who you are, even if you don't have a diagnosis, if something is causing you significant issues, you should be allowed to advocate for yourself. And I find that somebody who's, always been quite outspoken for myself, and I share a lot of what goes on for me, you'll also find that other staff can advocate for you as well. So I advocate for a lot of staff who, for example, aren't permanent, or like early career teachers, all of that sort of thing, because they don't feel like they have a voice. So I help them have a voice, I guess. So,
which is so
who's going to advocate for you?
You're such an angel. Listen to you. And I love that there are pre-service teachers at the not even started yet, asking these questions, and they have you and other teachers to guide them through, like what you're saying, can be really tricky waters. And this is about awareness. This is why we have Celebration Week, right? And again, if you're listening to this, hello, Puss. Yay. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, okay, go and connect with the Neurodivergent Educators Australian group. Again, the show notes will have a link to that. And also, Stevie said it would be great if you wanted to connect with her via her TikTok, because that's a place where she shares her experiences more as well. And so all of that is available on the show notes. But, I think we really need to think about neurodivergence it differently as something that needs accommodating, but also, as you're saying, something that can be really positive, really supporting, not only to support colleagues, but we talked to Kate in her podcast about if you've got a student and something's sort of feeling a little bit, the lens isn't quite working, seek advice from those who are neurodivergent. And your school is aware of your neurodivergence, so they can talk to you about how to look through a lens a little differently for students as well. Do you find that happens? Like, do you tell your kids that you have ADHD?
Absolutely. I couldn't help it. I honestly couldn't help it. But that's the thing, like I've shared some of my issues with mental illness as well with students. And sometimes that means that I mean, I've been contacted by a former student who wanted to ask me what he should do to prepare for a psychiatrist appointment. And he only knew to do that because I shared my experiences.
Yeah.
So, like, students need to see people as successful adults, and I am a successful teacher. I have a very different way of doing things a lot, but I'm a successful teacher. And if kids can see that not only that someone can be successful with mental illness or with neurodivergence or whatever, that's incredibly affirming for them as well, because they might be dealing with issues with their own self-esteem and their goals and all of that sort of stuff. So I'm very, very much myself in front of a class, and yeah, I'm not a successful teacher in spite of my neurodivergence. I'm a successful teacher because of my neurodivergence. And
Absolutely.
I know that to be true 100%. My differently working brain makes me work better with my students, whether they're neurodivergent or neurotypical. So, yeah.
Yeah, we want lots of different perspectives. Your brain offers a different perspective, a different context, a different lens. And if we can celebrate neurodiversity and see it no differently than, hey, I've got blonde hair and you've got brown hair, or hey, I have this lens, we can use that to strengthen our relationships with students, strengthen our understanding of learning, because we're teachers, we study how people learn. And if we don't understand that, the way the brain is different, you know, we could be wasting our time. Like, I think of teachers who are really strict about kids making eye contact when they talk to them and getting really stressed about that. And if they asked an autistic person, they would find out why that's just not going to happen and you're wasting your time. And again, that comes down to those lenses of neurotypical and neurodivergent, and why is it that kid needs a fidget toy, you know, and why is it that kid probably over there doesn't, you know, like how do we know, you know? So again, I just think there's so much power in open conversations in schools, in leadership teams, even in school policy. You know, I don't know if you're a school listening to this and you have in your staff handbook a policy about neurodivergence and staff, please let me know, because I want to celebrate you. Like, we should. It's a great thing. I've never understood why, as educators, we have to make accommodations for kids, but we're all really frightened to admit that we might be the same and we might have neurodivergence. It's like it's expected that somehow we were cured of our actual biological, neurological wiring between the ages of 18 and starting work. And that isn't true. There's no cure. It's not a thing. It's not a problem. It's just a difference. And of course, that's what this week is all about, raising awareness. Oh, absolutely. It's been great to talk to you, Stevie.
Absolutely.
You're so, no, I'll carry on, because I love this. It's so inspiring. I think it's really important that other educators hear this for two reasons. One is they're neurodivergent, or they think they might be, because they're like, you know, watching TikTok going, oh, does not everyone do that? I think so many of us work it out that way. Or they, like my story, they have a kid who turns out to be neurodivergent, and they're sat in the sessions going, oh, I just thought that was what everyone did. You know, like there's lots of ways this happens. Then that group, Neurodivergent Educators Australia, and the work that Stevie's doing is really, really important work. But if you're neurotypical and you're working with kids and colleagues, you know, like I think back to the English meetings, the English staff meetings, and my head of department would kick me under the table because I would get so excited and I would say yes to absolutely everything that everyone wanted to do because I was so enthusiastic. And she'd just kick me and say, I think you've got lots of things on your list now. Because she knew that she didn't stop me. I would just be so overexcited. I would want to do everything. And then I would burn out because I have no concept or understanding of how long it's going to take me to do those things. And I'm quite convinced that it's totally possible. And then eventually reality will hit. You know, so like, you know, even like a little gentle kick under the table, no, so they just don't, because other people need to say yes to some things, you know, like, and it's just really interesting. I just think back and I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of see that through a different lens now. I see what's going on there. So I think these conversations are incredibly important. They're important in schools, they're important in policy, they're important in government. They are really important, and you're very inspiring. The work you are doing is making a huge difference to educators. And I know you didn't expect, you wanted 2 people to come and hang out with, but there's enormous power in this movement. It's perfectly timed. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up the episode?
We're talking about like sharing stuff with students and being kind of open and vulnerable in the classroom. I think sometimes as teachers we think that we need to be perfect all the time, and that's impossible for every single one of us. But I mean, for my brain, that's absolutely impossible. That's definitely never going to happen. So like I do my best to be perfectly imperfect the way that works for me. So I mean, I know that sometimes, even though I've been teaching English for however many years now, that I will forget words. I will forget how to spell sometimes. I'll forget a concept, the name of something. And I'll ask students, like, does that word look right that I've written on the board? Like, I'm not sure of the spelling, and get them to check it for me. So actually showing the errors that I make, showing my learning, and the way that I do that is pretty cool. But, I mean, I have so much fun in the classroom sometimes. And, I mean, like, I'm celebrated for all of my big crazy arm movements and how excited I get about things. There are particular staff members. So the head of STEM, if we have our little catch up at the end of the week, the head of STEM, if I'm waving my arms madly about something, she'll come over and sit with me because she knows I'm getting really excited about something. She wants to hear it. Like,
that's beautiful.
That's pretty cool.
And I'm just laughing because I do that too.
So yeah, I guess I've learned.
I'm a gesticulatory communicator as well.
Yeah. And I mean, until you kind of accept that, like, that's just how you work, and like use those as strengths rather than seeing them as weaknesses, the kids pick up on that too. So they'll feel like, I told like my new classes, so something you need to know about me, I have ADHD, and the amount of kids that went, me too, like just like happily, it was so heartwarming.
It's so affirming.
It's
Powerful, energetic work. You know, like you're making it okay. You're making it celebrated. You're normalizing it. It's really, really important. Absolutely. I just want to celebrate Stevie. Woo! So, if you want to go connect with this amazing Facebook group, or you want to connect with Stevie, head to edufolios.org/podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will see a cat. That's exciting. And you will also be able to see below here the episode number that you need to directly go to if you want to go straight to this episode. Stevie, again, I just kind of say thank you for being here today. Thank you for being a fantastic example of somebody who celebrates neurodiversity and is really involved in this movement. It's so cool to hang out with you. And I want you to know that Stevie and I have been having lots of conversations about edufolios as well. If you've noticed that we have all of our onboarding things now with they pop up and they take you on a learning journey, that's because Stevie and I had a really cool conversation about neurodiverse brains. And so I'm loving this conversation. So again, if you're listening to this podcast and you have a suggestion for us at Edufolios, you can email us at support@edufolios.org, because we find it really important that we take all brains and all ways of learning into account as far as possible. I mean, we can't have 4,000 versions of Edufolios, but we can put things on it wherever we can. And it's just amazing work, really important work. So thank you so much, Stevie.
And can I just, to finish things off, the process that we went through looking at Edufolios, I mean, when I first tried to do that, I was so frustrated that there were tears multiple times, just because things weren't working in a way that my brain does. And once I kind of shared the way that my brain works, like Selena is like just... it was like magic. I was like, oh my gosh, like, are you reading my mind? So, no, honestly, it's like she put my brain into Edufolios, and it's like set up the way that my brain works. And I actually recorded some PD the other day, and actually got a little bit of
Yay!
dopamine because I knew all the steps to take. And I was like, I can
That's
do
it. And so if you love that, you need to
So
thank
that's
Stevie.
pretty
If you're loving all the boxes and the learning, thanks Stevie, and for being vulnerable and sharing with me. And I was like, I totally see what you mean. And then I was able to action it. That's what we do. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much on behalf of all Edufolios users and all neurodivergent humans. Thank you for the work you're doing. You're amazing. Whoop, 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 whoop. Thank you, Stevie.
Thank you. It's been amazing. It doesn't feel like work at all.
It never does when you're doing your purposeful work, does it? Hey. Thanks very much.